The station was dying. Park Doan stood at the bridge of his ship and watched the massive structure through the viewport. Station Veltura was the size of a small moon. It floated in the darkness of space, lights flickering like a heart struggling to beat. Inside that station lived more than 2 million beings from 47 different species. And in 18 hours, all of them would be dead. The distress signal had reached his ship 3 hours ago. The human vessel Endurance was a small thing compared to the great ships of the Galactic Council. It was old. It was patched in 100 places. But it was fast, and it was close. And when Do-hyun heard the call for help, he did not hesitate. Now he stood in the council chamber aboard the station, surrounded by beings that made him feel very small. The Avani were tall creatures made of living crystal. They changed colors with their emotions. The one called Velen, the High Arbiter of the Council, was currently a deep shade of blue. Do-hyun had learned that blue meant sadness. It meant giving up. "The reactor core is failing," Velen said. Its voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "Our engineers have calculated every possibility. There is no solution. The antimatter containment will collapse in 18 hours. When it does, everything within 50,000 kilometers will be destroyed." Do-hyun looked at the holographic display floating in the center of the room. It showed the reactor, a massive sphere of light and energy at the heart of the station. Red warnings flashed everywhere. Numbers counted down. "What about evacuation?" Do-hyun asked. A machine being spoke. It was one of the Khazari, creatures that had merged their minds with computers long ago. "Impossible. We have transport capacity for 400,000. There are 2.3 million aboard. Even if we began now, we could not save even a quarter of the population." The other engineers in the room were silent. The crystalline Orvani, the gas cloud Melfi, the mechanical Khazari, the greatest minds of the galaxy. All of them had the same look, the same color, the same feeling. They had given up. Do-hyun turned to his chief engineer. Yoon-hana was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that never stopped thinking. She was looking at the holographic display, her fingers moving slightly as she calculated things in her head. "Hannah," he said quietly, "what do you see?" She did not answer right away. The aliens watched her with confusion. What could this small human see that their greatest minds had missed? "The containment field is failing in sections," Hannah finally said. "Not all at once. The cascade is predictable. If we could stabilize each section manually, one by one, before the next one fails." "Impossible," the Khazari unit said. "The radiation levels in those sections are far beyond biological tolerance. No organic being could survive." Hannah looked at the machine being. "What are the exact levels?" Numbers appeared on the display. The Khazari seemed almost proud as it showed them. "You see? Even our hardened drones cannot function in such conditions. The electromagnetic interference destroys their systems, and any living creature would die within minutes." Hannah studied the numbers. Then she did something that confused every alien in the room. She smiled. "Captain," she said, "I think we can do this." Velen's crystal body flickered with new colors, confusion, disbelief. "You cannot be serious. Did you not hear? The radiation will kill you." "It will hurt us," Hannah agreed. "But humans are different. We can take more than you think. And we have ways of protecting ourselves that your calculations might not account for." Do-hyun nodded slowly. He had served with Hannah for 15 years. He trusted her with his life. He trusted her with the lives of his crew. And right now, he trusted her with the lives of 2.3 million strangers. "I want to see the reactor myself," he said. The aliens exchanged looks. The Orvani colors shifted in ways the translator could not explain. Finally, Velen spoke. "Very well. But I must warn you, Captain, What you are proposing, it has never been done. Our engineers are the finest in the galaxy. If they say it cannot be done, it cannot be done. Dahan met the alien's many eyes. With respect, High Arbiter, your engineers gave up. Mine haven't even started. He turned and walked toward the door. Hannah followed. Behind them, the chamber erupted in confused sounds and flashing colors. 1 hour later, Do-hyun stood at the entrance to the reactor access tunnels. The heat was already uncomfortable. The radiation warnings on his suit were yellow, not yet red. Beside him, Hannah was taking readings with a device she had built herself. It's bad, she admitted, but not impossible. We'll need to work in shifts, multiple teams, and we'll need to move fast. How many people? 20 at minimum. More would be better. Dawn thought about his crew. 47 souls aboard the Endurance. Every one of them had a family somewhere. Every one of them had dreams and hopes and futures. And he was about to ask them to walk into death, but he also thought about the 2.3 million aboard this station. Families, children, beings, who had done nothing wrong except be in the wrong place when the universe decided to be cruel. I'll ask for volunteers, he said. Hannah shook her head. You won't need to. They'll all volunteer. You know they will. She was right. He knew she was right. That was what made him proud. And that was what made him afraid. When they returned to the council chamber, Velen was waiting, the great crystal being looked down at the two small humans. Well? It asked. Have you seen enough to understand the hopelessness of your plan? Do-hyun straightened his back. He was not a tall man. He was not a young man. He was just a human, standing in a room full of beings who had already decided that death was the only answer. We've got this, he said. Velen's body flickered. The translator struggled with the alien's response. It might have been hope. It might have been pity. But Do-hyun was already walking away, already planning, already calling his crew. There was work to be done. The cargo bay of the Endurance was silent. 23 humans stood in neat rows, looking at the woman in front of them. Hannah had never been good at speeches. She preferred machines. Machines made sense. Machines did not ask questions. Machines did not have families waiting for them back home. But these were not machines. These were people. Her people. I will not lie to you, she said. This will be the hardest thing any of us have ever done. The radiation levels in those tunnels are high. Higher than anything we've trained for. Some of us might not come back. No one moved. No one spoke. They just waited. The station has 2.3 million people aboard. Children, families, beings we have never met and probably never will meet again. They are not human. They are not our kind. Most of them have spent their lives thinking of humans as lesser creatures, primitive, weak, emotional. She paused and looked at their faces. Young faces, old faces, scared faces and brave faces and faces that showed nothing at all. They were wrong about us. Today, we show them how wrong they were. Sergeant Bae Tae-ho stepped forward. He was a big man, the kind of man who made rooms feel smaller just by standing in them. But his voice was gentle when he spoke. What's the plan, Lieutenant? Hannah turned to the holographic display behind her. The reactor schematic appeared, red zones flashing everywhere. We split into 4 teams. Each team takes a section of the containment system. We work from the outside in, stabilizing each section before moving to the next. The trick is timing. We have to stay ahead of the cascade failure. If we fall behind, the whole thing collapses and we're done. A young engineer raised his hand. Kim Ji-woo was barely 25, fresh from the academy, brilliant with machines, but nervous around people. His hand was shaking slightly. Lieutenant, what about the radiation? How long can we stay in there? Hannah met his eyes. She would not lie to him. The aliens calculate that we can survive about 30 minutes in the outer sections, maybe less in the inner ones. Our own calculations are more optimistic, but we'll be rotating constantly. No one stays in longer than they have to. And if someone gets a lethal dose? The question hung in the air. Everyone knew the answer. They just needed to hear it said. Then we carry them out and someone else finishes their work. Silence again. Then Tahoe laughed. It was a strange sound in that heavy room. Well, that sounds like Tuesday to me. Let's get moving. The tension broke. People started moving, checking equipment, forming into their teams. Hannah watched them and felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe. Or fear. Sometimes they felt the same dot the aliens sent observers. 3 Khazari units, their mechanical bodies gleaming under the cargo bay lights. They did not speak. They just watched, recording everything. Unit 7 Theta followed Hannah's team into the access tunnels. The heat hit them immediately, a wall of warmth that made breathing difficult. Hannah's suit beeped warnings at her. She ignored them. First junction is 200 meters ahead, she said into her comm. Team 2, what's your status? Taiho's voice crackled back. Entering Section B now. It's hot in here, Lieutenant. Really hot. Stay focused. Call out if anyone shows symptoms. Copy that. They moved through the tunnels in single file. The walls glowed faintly with heat. Strange sounds echoed around them, the station groaning under the stress of its failing systems. Jiwoo walked behind Hana, his eyes wide behind his visor. Lieutenant, he whispered, I'm scared. Hannah did not slow down. Good. Scared keeps you careful. Just don't let it stop you. They reached the first junction. A massive control panel covered one wall, half of its lights red and flashing. Hannah pulled open an access panel and looked inside. Melted wires. Burned circuits. A mess. This is worse than I thought, she said calmly. Jiwoo, hand me the bypass kit. The young engineer moved to her side, hands still shaking but moving with purpose. Behind them, Unit 7 Theta watched in silence. An hour passed. Then 2. Hana's team stabilized the first junction, then moved to the second. The radiation warnings on their suits had gone from yellow to orange. Hannah ignored them. Taiho's team hit a problem. A collapsed corridor blocked their path to Section B. The alien observers calculated that finding an alternate route would take too long. The cascade would reach that section before they could get there. We're going outside, Taiho announced over the comm. Hannah stopped what she was doing. Say again? The corridor is blocked, but there's a maintenance hatch 50 meters back. We can spacewalk along the outer hall and enter Section B from the external access point. Taiho, there's a debris field out there. The station is shedding hull plates. You'll be walking through a shooting gallery. Then we'll walk fast. Hannah wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him it was too dangerous, that there had to be another way. But she knew there wasn't, and she knew Taiho would go anyway. Be careful, was all she said. Always am. The Khazari observer transmitted to the council. The human unit designated Taiho is exiting the station with 3 other humans. They are entering a debris field with minimal protection. This behavior is not logical. They will likely be killed. On the observation deck, Velen watched the external cameras. 4 small figures in white suits moving across the station's hull. Metal fragments flew past them, some missing by centimeters. The humans did not stop. They did not slow down. They just kept moving, step by step, toward their goal. Why? Velen whispered. Why do they do this? No one had an answer. Inside the tunnels, Hannah's team reached the 3rd junction. The radiation was now in the red zone. Dr. O'Meara's voice came over the calm, and professional. Team 1, your radiation exposure is approaching critical levels. You need to rotate out. Hana looked at the control panel. Half done. If they stop now, they would have to start over. 10 more minutes, she said. Lieutenant, I strongly advise. 10 more minutes, Doctor. Then we'll rotate. Beside her, Jiwoo had stopped shaking. His hands moved steadily over the circuits, splicing and reconnecting. He was humming something, an old song from Earth that Hana almost recognized. Unit 7 Theta's transmission to the Council. The humans have exceeded their biological tolerance thresholds by 23%. They show signs of radiation sickness, but continue working. They are singing. I do not understand. I require additional processing capacity to comprehend what I am witnessing. Velen read the transmission and felt its crystalline body shift to colors it had not felt in centuries. It did not know the name for this emotion. It had never needed one before, but watching these strange, small, soft creatures do the impossible, Velen began to understand something. Dada began to understand what hope looked like. 12 hours remained on the clock when Captain Park Do-yoon called the meeting. His crew gathered around the CUM system. Some in the tunnels, some on the ship, some in the medical bay being treated for radiation burns. They looked tired. They looked sick. But they were still fighting, and that was what mattered. Good news first, Do-hyun said. We've stabilized 60% of the containment system. The cascade is slowing down. Lieutenant Yoon's plan is working. A weak cheer went up from the teams. Do-hyun let them have the moment. They had earned it. Now the bad news. The cheering stopped. The core itself is degrading faster than we predicted. The outer containment will hold, but if the core fails, none of it matters. Everything we've done will be for nothing. Silence on the CUM. Hannah's voice came through, tired but steady. What do we need to do? Someone needs to go into the primary chamber. Manual override of the core stabilizers is the only way. More silence. Everyone knew what the primary chamber meant. The radiation there was not orange or red. It was off the charts. It was instant death for any species the galaxy had ever known. I'll go, Taiho said immediately. Wait. Dr. O'Meara's voice cut in. Let me give you the numbers first. A human can survive approximately 47 minutes in that chamber. The repairs will take at least 60 minutes. Maybe more. So we send 2 people, Taiho said. First one works until they can't. Second one finishes. The words hung in the air. 2 people walking into certain harm. 2 people knowing that one of them would not walk out whole. Velen's voice came over the speaker. The alien had been listening to their communications, trying to understand these strange creatures. You would sacrifice your own kind? For strangers? For species who have treated humanity as lesser for generations? Do-hyun closed his eyes. He had asked himself the same question 100 times since they arrived. Every time, he found the same answer. You're not strangers, he said quietly. You're just people we haven't helped yet. The CUM was silent. Then a new voice spoke. Young. Female. Calm in a way that made Do-hyun's heart ache. I'll go with Sergeant Bae. Yu Seo-jin was 22 years old. She had been on the Endurance for only 8 months. She was small and quiet and had a habit of disappearing into corners during social gatherings. But she was also the fastest technician Do-hyun had ever seen. Her hands moved like magic over circuits and wires. Seo-jin. Hana's voice was strained. You don't have to do this. I know. But I'm the best choice. You know I am. I can work faster than anyone else on this ship. If anyone can finish in time, it's me. No one argued. Because no one could. Taiho found Seo-jin in the equipment bay, checking her suit for the 10th time. She looked up when he entered, and for a moment, she seemed very young. A child playing dress-up in grown-up clothes. "Hey, kid," Taiho said. "You sure about this?" Seojin smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it was real. "I'm sure." "Are you?" Taiho sat down beside her. His big body suddenly seemed tired, older than his years. "I've been doing this a long time. Emergency response. Rescue missions. I've walked into fire and flood and collapse. I've carried people out of places where no one should survive. But this is different. This is," he struggled for the word, "this is forever. You understand that, right? Even if we survive, we won't be the same." Seojin was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were small against his massive palm. "My grandmother used to tell me stories," she said. "Old stories from Korea, about people who gave everything to help others. She said that's what makes us human. Not our bodies, not our minds, our hearts. The way we care about people we've never met." Taiho squeezed her hand. "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." She was. She died when I was 12. Cancer. She fought it for 3 years, and she never stopped smiling. Never stopped helping people. Even at the end, she was more worried about the nurses than about herself. Seojin stood up and pulled on her gloves. "I want to be like her. I want to be someone who helps. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts." The walk to the primary chamber was the longest of Taiho's life. The tunnels here were different. The walls glowed white-hot. The air in his suit felt thick and heavy. Every step was a battle. Behind them walked an alien observer. Crystalline voice of morning was an Orvani, ancient even by its species standards. It had asked permission to witness what the humans were about to do. Dahyun had agreed, not understanding why it mattered. The chamber door loomed before them. A massive circular hatch covered in warning signs in 100 languages. Through the small window, they could see the light of the core. Beautiful, deadly, waiting. Taiho turned to Seojin. "I go first. I work as long as I can. When I can't anymore, you come in and finish. No hesitation. No waiting. You understand?" Seojin nodded. Her face was pale behind her visor, but her eyes were steady. "One more thing." Taiho pulled something from his pocket. A small metal chain with a charm shaped like a flower. "This was my daughter's. She gave it to me before I left Earth. Said it would keep me safe. I want you to have it." Seojin took the chain. Her hands were shaking now, just slightly. "I'll give it back to you when we're done." Taiho smiled. "Yeah, you do that." He turned to the door. Behind him, crystalline voice of morning watched in silence, its body shifting through colors that had no names in any language. Taiho opened the door. The light swallowed him whole, and he began to work. The clock on Hana's display showed 41 minutes. Through the observation window, she watched Taiho work. His movements had slowed over the past 10 minutes. His hands, once steady and sure, now trembled as they reached for tools. But he had not stopped. He had not even paused. The core stabilizer panel was half repaired. Wires reconnected. Circuits replaced. Taiho had worked through pain that would have killed most beings in the galaxy. He had worked through burning skin and failing eyes and muscles that screamed for rest. But now he was done. His hands stopped moving. His body slumped against the console. Through the window, Hana could see his chest still rising and falling. He was alive. But he could not continue. Seojin did not wait. The chamber door opened, and she stepped through without hesitation. The light wrapped around her like a lover's embrace, warm and deadly and absolute. She did not look at Taiho as she passed him. There was no time for goodbyes. She reached the console and began to work. On the observation deck, 17 different species watched through cameras and sensors. Word had spread through the station. The humans were doing something impossible, something unthinkable. Beings who had never cared about humanity before now pressed against view screens. Trying to understand, Velen stood at the center of the crowd, its crystalline body cycling through colors so fast that the other aliens could not follow. Beside it, crystalline voice of morning reported everything it witnessed through a direct mental link. The young female has entered the chamber, it said. Her vital signs are already degrading. The radiation is destroying her cellular structure at an exponential rate. She continues to work. How? Velen whispered. How is this possible? I do not know. I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars be born and die. I thought I understood courage. I did not understand anything. Seojin's hands flew over the console. She had memorized every step of the procedure, every wire, every connection, every sequence. In her mind, she could see the schematic as clearly as if it were floating before her eyes. At minute 48, her vision began to blur. Lieutenant, she said into her her voice calm and steady. I'm losing my sight. Going to need verbal guidance for the last sequence. In the engineering bay, Hannah gripped the edge of her console so hard that her knuckles turned white. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice did not waver. Copy that, Seojin. I've got you. The next connection is the blue wire, third from the left. It goes to Terminal 7. Blue wire. Terminal 7. Got it. Good. Now the red wire, second from the right. Terminal 12. Red wire. Terminal 12. Step by step, Hana talked her through it. Her voice was the only thing Sayo could hold on to in the darkness that was swallowing her world. She followed it like a lifeline, her fingers finding the right wires by touch alone. At minute 53, her hands started to fail. Lieutenant, I can't. My fingers won't. Yes, they will. Hannah's voice was fierce. You can do this, Seojin. You're almost there. 3 more connections. Just 3 more. Seojin closed her eyes. Not that it mattered anymore. The world was dark either way. But somehow, closing them helped her focus. She could feel the wires beneath her fingers. She could feel the warmth of the console, the hum of the energy flowing through it. She could feel Taiho's charm against her chest. Warm and solid and real. 3 more connections, she whispered to herself. Just 3 more. Her fingers moved. At minute 57. The second to last wire found its place. At minute 58. Sojin's legs gave out. She collapsed against the console, her breath coming in short, painful gasps. But her hands kept working. Always working. At minute 59. The final connection clicked into place. The console lit up green. The containment field stabilized. The reactor began its shutdown sequence. Seojin did not try to leave the chamber. She knew she could not make it. Instead, she crawled to where Taiho lay slumped against the wall. She took his hand in hers and held on tight. We did it, she whispered. We did it. The chamber door burst open. Human medics rushed in, wearing nothing but basic hazmat gear that would not protect them from what was inside. They did not hesitate. They did not calculate the risks. They just moved, lifting their fallen comrades, carrying them toward the light. On the observation deck, 2 million beings watched in silence. Velen's crystalline body had stopped cycling through colors. It had settled on something new, something the translators could not name. When it spoke, its voice was barely a whisper. They knew. They knew what would happen to them. They knew from the very beginning. Crystalline voice of morning nodded slowly. Yes, and they went anyway. Yes, Why? We have treated them as lesser beings for generations. We have mocked them, dismissed them. Why would they sacrifice themselves for us? The ancient Irvani was silent for a long moment. Then it turned to Velen, its body glowing with colors that spoke of wonder and grief and something that might have been love. Because there were people who needed help, it said. That is all the reason they need. That is all the reason they have ever needed. In the medical bay, Dr. Elmira worked through the night. Taiho was stable. Damaged, perhaps forever, but alive. Seerjin was in critical condition, her body fighting against the damage that the radiation had done. But she was fighting. That was the human way. Always fighting. Always hoping. Never giving up. Outside the medical bay window, the stars burned cold and distant. But inside, surrounded by machines and medicine and the desperate hope of her crew, Seojin held on to life, and the galaxy held its breath. 3 days after the crisis ended, Station Veltura held a memorial. The observation deck had been transformed. 2 million beings stood in silence, arranged in circles that spread out from a central platform. 47 species, some as small as insects, some larger than buildings. All of them looking at the small group of humans standing at the center. 3 humans had not survived. 2 engineers who died when a conduit exploded in Section C. 1 medic who refused to leave the core chamber until everyone else was out, and who paid for that choice with her life. Their pictures floated above the platform, projected in light. Young faces. Smiling faces. Faces that would never grow old. Captain Park Doyen stood before the crowd. He looked older than he had 3 days ago, tired in a way that sleep could not fix. But his voice was steady when he spoke. These were my people, he said. Lee Hyun-jae, Sun Yuna, Park Ji-ae. They were not soldiers. They were not heroes. They were engineers and doctors and ordinary people who saw others in trouble and could not walk away. He paused, looking at the faces floating above him. They did not ask what species needed help. They did not ask what the reward would be. They saw suffering, and they moved to end it. That is who they were. That is who we all try to be. In the crowd, Velen listened. Its crystalline body glowed with soft blue light, the color of morning. Around it, beings of 100 shapes and sizes stood in silence. Some of them were crying, in whatever way their species cried. Others simply stared, trying to understand. After the ceremony, Velen approached Doyen. The great alien towered over the human captain, but somehow, in that moment, it felt like Velen was the smaller one. I must ask you something, Velen said. I have been trying to understand for 3 days, and I cannot. Why? Your species is young. You have so few members compared to the rest of the galaxy. Why risk so much for those who are not your own? Dahyun considered the question. He thought about his crew, about Taiho, who was sitting in a wheelchair across the deck, refusing to lie down even now. About Seojin, who was still in the medical bay, still fighting, still alive against all odds. About the 3 faces floating in the light above them. Because that's what we do, he said finally. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the smartest. We don't live the longest or travel the fastest or build the biggest ships. But when someone needs help, we show up. Every time. Without question. That's just what humans do. Velen was silent for a long moment. Then it did something that no Orvani had ever done to a human before. It lowered its massive crystalline head in a gesture of respect. I understand now, it said, and I am honored to have witnessed what your kind is capable of. 1 week later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from every member species. For 800 years, this body had governed the known galaxy. For 800 years, humans have been considered too young, too primitive, too emotional to be trusted with real responsibility. That changed in a single vote. The resolution passed unanimously. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges thereof. But that was not the only change. A new organization was created. The Human Emergency Response Corps, a fleet of ships, crewed by humans and staffed with the best equipment the galaxy could provide. Their mission was simple. When disaster struck anywhere in the galaxy, they would answer the call. When the announcement was made, Hannah was sitting in Seojin's hospital room. The young woman was awake now, though still weak. She would never fully recover. The radiation had taken too much. But she was alive, and she was smiling. "Did you hear?" Hannah said. "They're naming a ship after you. The Seojin. It'll be the flagship of the new fleet." Seojin laughed, then winced at the pain. "That's silly. I didn't do anything special. You saved 2 million lives. We all did. I just happened to be the one in the chamber at the end." Hannah reached out and took her hand. The same hand that had made the final connection. The same hand that had held on to Taiho in the darkness. "That's what makes you special," Hannah said. "You don't think you are." 6 months passed. Hannah stood on the bridge of her new ship, the Seojin's Promise. It was larger than the old Endurance, faster and better equipped. But it still felt like home, because the same people crewed it. Human and alien, working side by side. The distress call came in at 03:00 hours. A colony ship, damaged by an asteroid strike, drifting toward a black hole. 17,000 lives aboard. Rescue ships were too far away. No one else could reach them in time. No one except the Seojin's Promise. Hannah looked at her crew. Jiwoo was at the engineering station, no longer the nervous young man he had been. Taiho stood at the tactical display, his wheelchair long abandoned, though he walked with a limp now. New faces filled the other stations, humans and aliens who had volunteered for this duty. In the corner of the bridge, crystalline voice of morning watched in silence. It had asked to join the crew after the Veltura incident. It wanted to learn more about humans. It wanted to understand. "What's our status?" Hannah asked. "All systems ready, Captain," Jiwoo reported. "We can reach the colony ship in 4 hours if we push the engines. Then push them." She opened a channel to the drifting ship. 17,000 voices crying out for help. 17,000 lives hanging in the balance. "This is Captain Yoon Hana of the Seojin's Promise," she said. "We've received your distress call. We've received your distress call. Hold on, help is coming." A pause. Then a voice broken with static and fear, and something that might have been hope. "How? No one can reach us in time. The black hole." Hannah smiled. It was the same smile she had worn in the reactor tunnels. The smile that said impossible was just a word. "We've got this," she said, and the galaxy believed her, because they had seen what humans could do. They had witnessed the unthinkable. They had watched ordinary people walk into death for strangers, and they had understood, finally, what humanity truly was. Not the strongest, not the smartest, not the oldest or the wisest thought, just the ones who showed up. Every time. Without question. Without hesitation. The ones who heard a cry for help and answered, "We've got this." And they always did.